City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
Okay, let's get the study session in order. Okay, I'd like to call the City Council study session to order. Joanna, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Downing.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carol Dodge.
Here.
Councilmember Snetzinger will be absent. Councilmember Mullica will be absent. Councilmember Wayne Dodge.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Carrico.
Here.
Councilmember Whitman.
Here.
Councilmember Winnicky.
Here.
Thank you. First on the agenda is historic preservation ordinance. Is Corey here? I walked right by you.
I was hiding.
Yes, yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a follow-up, I think, from actually two previous discussions regarding potential modifications to the city's historic preservation ordinance to allow it to become a certified local government, or CLG. The most significant change from the previous draft, the last time we talked about this issue, the concern of the council was assuring that if a property owner was in a potential district, that property could subsequently opt out, that the city did not want to inadvertently create a property rights issue with the homeowner. At the time we had our discussion, there were certified local governments that have ordinances with opt-out provisions. Unfortunately, I'd point you to the top of page 3 of my memo. History Colorado, as the implementing body of the federal designation from the National Park Service, has implemented a policy that it originated from the National Park Service that really says that now it will not accept certified local government ordinances that have districts with opt-out provisions. So I guess I would suggest that the primary issue for tonight is whether or not the city wants to have districts within the context of its ordinance, understanding that the districts could include people within the district that then subsequently want to opt out and can't. That would not prevent the city from doing this on a structure by structure, on a landmark basis. But that's the primary question. I know council was very concerned at the last meeting about not in perpetuity impairing someone's right in a district. And again, this ordinance does not allow an opt-out if a district is created, because that wouldn't be accepted by the National Park Service.
We don't really need districts, do we? I mean, I know there's been conversation both ways, but I mean, is there I know, and I had brought it up in the past too, because we were looking at desert estates and that general area. But that does, I mean, like you say, if you can do it structure by structure, there really truly isn't a reason to do that.
And that's why I wanted to have one last discussion with council, because if there is not a desire to have the district, we could essentially modify this one last time. From my perspective, it's obviously up to you. It wouldn't need to come back to a study session where we just eliminate the district. You'd still have the landmark designation, the designations short of a district that would be within the ordinance that, from everything we have understood, would still get the city, the certified local government designation.
Any questions, comments?
I would go that way too, structure by structure, and don't waste any more time on it.
Right.
Move forward.
Yep. Anyone else?
I'm just okay with it because I don't think we have that many areas that we designate as a district, so it makes sense.
I think maybe, like I said, one, and that could be, very well could be structure by structure, because I don't know that all those houses in that area fit that whole description, so.
Okay.
We will come back with an ordinance very quickly.
Okay.
Should be ready for first reading within the next month or so.
Thank you.
I got several issues
Oh,
with it.
okay.
Okay.
On page 3,
Yes.
B at the bottom.
Bottom.
16-9-4B.
Yep.
Okay.
I think it should say that there will be 7 commissioners.
Instead of not less than.
Right.
Yeah.
That there will be 7.
Okay.
No.
Any objection from council?
I'm sorry, I'm not finding that area.
It's on the bottom of page 3.
In the ordinance, it's in.
The ordinance itself.
Because I read
sorry.
that a little while ago too, yeah.
So no more, no less?
Thank you.
Just
Just
said,
that.
and that makes sense. That was in the current ordinance. Weren't asked to address it, but I would suggest that's an appropriate change.
Page 5. Commissioners should may be removed for cause by the council. I have an issue with them following the open meeting law. Can we make that a non-cause issue?
Can you explain, just,
What I'm suggesting is that if the commission, since you're talking about keeping the same members,
right. Oh, I don't know if they'll always be the same members, but I mean,
same members,
okay. The number.
that the open meeting law needs to be followed.
What section are you on? I'm sorry.
E.
Okay.
E.
Yeah, 1694.
They're always kept, so I don't know what that is.
Oh, maybe, okay, I was on page. I guess I would suggest failing to comply with the open meetings law is cause.
Okay.
I mean, this is a body that would be covered by the open meetings law. So I wouldn't suggest that's a revision that's appropriate.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, right down below in A, the commission currently has difficulties now and then with the quorum. And I wanted to suggest that perhaps we could add to it at the end of that first sentence, in advance. In essence, it doesn't make sense for, I mean, if members know that they can't make it, then why not cancel the meeting ahead of time?
Right.
Instead of just showing up at the meeting like a lot of your minutes show, and whoops, there's not enough quorum.
Right, yeah, and we don't know that until we're there.
Pardon?
We don't know that until we're there.
Right, I'm
Yeah.
just to conduct business in advance.
What this
Something like that.
what this language suggests to me, and I think you and I at one point had a conversation about that via email, is that there's 2 things that would cause a meeting not to happen. One is no business. You would know that in advance, and so the meeting would be canceled in advance. The other is if you don't have a quorum. That's why I have those as alternatives. We could certainly say, add a sentence that says meetings may be canceled in advance, but I think that's implied from the unless there is no business to come before the commission, because you will know, because you'll have an agenda that has no business.
If you know there's not going to be enough members, you cancel it because it gets posted and people show up.
Right, it's just that we never know. I mean, we can ask the commissioners, but many times things happen that they don't notify us until we're waiting for,
Right, because
to
I've
start.
gone to a couple of meetings and I find out later that there wasn't a quorum, that's why nobody showed up.
Well, it's because we knew you were
Pardon?
coming.
On page 5,
So does council want some language about meetings being canceled in advance? Again, I think it's implicit, but if we want to
I
put
don't
another
think we need
sentence
it.
in there, we certainly
Okay.
Does
could.
anybody else think we need it?
No.
Okay.
that's fine.
No, okay.
That's fine. On top of page 5, number E, I think the commission, it's a regulatory body, just like the planning, and advisory, like the planning commission, like the park board. And I think that the commission should conduct its meetings at City Hall in this room.
Well, they're actually, because of the different commissions that are already booked, but we are meeting over the rec center.
Right, but when you have public hearings in that little room.
Oh, in the public, well, then you would reschedule them, so it would be open to, yes.
Well, why not just meet here regularly? You could meet like the first Thursday of
Well,
each
we have
month.
to go along with everybody else that's on the commission too. I mean, we look at everyone's schedule and try to schedule appropriately, and that's where the Tuesday came in. That was, the majority of the people could make it. That's why it's on a Tuesday.
But just know that the first Thursday of each month, the second Tuesday of every month is
Whatever it is.
available. This room is available.
You know, we checked in advance, and these rooms are scheduled, so.
Well, it's available the first Thursday of the month, every month, and the
All I'm
second
saying is
Tuesday.
we might lose commissioners because they work also. And we schedule the meeting that we have now around the availability of people that can attend the meetings.
I'm not talking about the time of day, I was just talking about the location. And the
Oh, I
time.
don't care where we meet, you know,
Okay.
and actually the Stonehocker House is probably more convenient as far as accessible than here.
Okay.
So is there a change to the ordinance contemplated? Okay.
On 9, you're talking,
Page 9?
page 9, you're talking about, if you look at 8, you're talking about the criteria for structures, sites, yes, structures, then you have the second bullet, number 2. And in there, I don't understand, on page 9, item C, what it really means. Enhances the sense of identity of the city. That's the reason for putting something in the historic district?
So let's say, and I don't think this is something in Northglenn, but a water tower that had the Northglenn emblem on it, something that had, you know, been sort of the historic fabric or identity of the city, an old firehouse, could be something like that.
Okay, I just didn't understand how that was a criteria. Okay. Page 12. Get down there. I see C again's in there.
And actually, 16-19-10 will come out in its entirety.
Okay.
So that entire section will be deleted.
What about, does that apply in the next one, in A, down in 11?
What page are you at? 12?
On the bottom of page 12,
Okay.
paragraph A, within a designated historic district.
Yes, that will,
You're going to take that out?
but, well, the portion that talks about within a designated historic district, but a designated structure will remain.
Okay.
So what we'll do is take out all the references to districts. So that 16-9-10 will come out, as will the references to a district.
Page 13, the very bottom. I'm trying to think why I marked that. Oh, alteration certificates, where they're appealing to the commission for permission to alter their property, their individual property. Could you explain a little bit more what 8 means?
Yeah, part of getting the designation of a historic structure will be compliance with, and that's part of what History Colorado does when they implement federal guidelines, is to assure compliance with the Department of Interior standards. That's where the standards come from that History Colorado implements effectively.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions, comments? Okay, I think we can really move it forward then. Thank you, Sue. All right, next is John, construction related matters.
Right. When the council discussed this ordinance, this proposed ordinance, a while ago, there were a number of concerns that were raised. And since that time, the city attorney's taken a look at the ordinance and revised the proposed ordinance in a couple of ways to address those concerns. First, that he added an exemption for utilities. That was one of the concerns that was raised, that if a XL has a problem during the middle of the night, they're not going to contact the city manager or my designee to get a permit. You know,
Right.
they can go ahead and do that work. No, I really didn't have any intention to do that. And then the other is to add language back into the draft that was in and is currently in our current ordinance, which defines the nuisance as noise that crosses a residential real property boundary, so that if the noise does not do that, then it would not be considered to be a nuisance under this ordinance. And I think that addressed a lot of the concerns about some of the minor types of things that might happen, somebody operating a saw perhaps, or whatever. And also, if it's something that doesn't generate any noise at all, then it would not be, even though it's a construction activity, it would not be considered to be a nuisance. So I think that addressed a lot of the concerns that were raised.
Questions? Questions?
I
No?
had some questions earlier, but John and Corey fixed them all.
Okay, good. Anything else?
Great,
All
very
right,
good, thank you.
moving along here. Okay, signage. All right. Brooke? Signage request for wastewater treatment plant. More of a discussion, I think.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The city manager asked me to put this memo together for discussion purposes tonight, as there was some questions and concerns about the possibility of signing the wastewater treatment plant in the surrounding area to notify surrounding either area property owners or residents of the existence of the facility. And so in doing that, we put together a PDF, which you have in your packet, which identifies potential locations for the purposes of putting up a sign. We didn't put together any pricing because we didn't know what size sign or the type of sign that we wanted to look at. But primarily, we can do this under the sign code as a public sign, and so therefore, we're not constrained with either size or height of signs in that sense. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
That I'll add, that also means that we can prepare the signs in-house.
That's correct, yeah.
At minimal cost.
Correct.
Questions, comments?
You know, I brought this up just because the building's going in, and we know that, several home builders are building in the area and more are coming. And it seems like we have complaints about the wastewater, the smells there. And so you're going to have more houses, you're probably going to have more complaints. So this way, at least you've got signs up and kind of lets people know that, hey, this is what I'm moving in next to. So that was my thought. If I drove this, I wouldn't have picked anything different than what you did. I mean, it looks like right on the money where I would go, so.
I'll give Travis credit. I didn't do it.
Is he here?
He's not.
Okay. That would change a few things then.
What's it gonna say?
I think what we were proposing is, City of Northglenn wastewater treatment plant, something very straightforward, nothing more than just basically what you would see
Like
for,
Panorama on rest, or buy it on rest?
nothing like that, no.
Is there anything right now, anywhere in the facility and maybe, I don't know if this is an appropriate time to bring this up, but about when people purchase property in the area, is there anything in their titles or anywhere that makes them aware or recognizes the fact that there is a treatment plant in the area? Or what can we do about it?
I can speak at first to that, and then if Corey wants to piggyback, it'd be great. Under the 92 settlement agreement, there was a provision added that any property annexed by the city of Thornton after 1992 would have what was contemplated as Exhibit 10 of the settlement agreement, basically a notification that would be recorded to the title of any property that was annexed after the settlement agreement, that they are within proximity of a wastewater treatment plant. Now, as I understand, there's a subdivision to the south west of the wastewater treatment plant. We have not had time as of yet to confirm if that was annexed before or after the settlement agreement. The subdivision appears to clearly have come in after 1992, but we haven't had time yet to confirm with Weld County when it was annexed. If it was annexed after 1992 into Thornton, then it would be where that should be reflected on the individual title
On every individual house.
on each house in that notifies that you're within that you are within
Pretty
proximity of the wastewater treatment plant. But we have not as of yet been able to confirm if that particular subdivision was. So anything annexed into Thornton prior to that doesn't have that exhibit or that language document included with the title.
In some of my conversations with the people that have called me, they said they've lived there about 8 years. So, Corey, do you have anything to kind of add to?
No, I think Brooke identified what's there currently, and certainly we would have issues if there's future development in Section 36 or nearby.
Right.
This has always been an issue the city has contemplated, making sure that everyone's aware of.
And there are some other options we can handle.
Yeah, one of the options that I think we've talked about is a more direct, what's called an odor easement, and actually having, this was a notice that was contemplated by the 1992 agreement, but actually having a document recorded against the property that says the city has a right to emit odors over the property based on the pre-existing condition effectively.
So I think we probably need to find out about the annexation.
And yeah, we just didn't have the time
Right.
between now and when we found out
And then
about this.
maybe we need to have that discussion, of the easements.
And certainly we had issues with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment several years ago related to odor that we had to resolve regardless of what our impact was on the neighboring properties. So while this is a big part of it, it's not everything. And so we always have to make sure that we're acting within compliance of whatever regulations they have as well.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I just think you should move forward with the signage. It's not really marked up there. I mean, we drove around, and considering all the development that's going on, why not put them up?
Yes, I'm agreeable with the signage, as a start.
Yeah.
Just one quick thing, once we do make the changes to the wastewater treatment plant, we probably will have reduced odor, right? Is that the plan?
Yeah, we believe so.
Okay, but I mean, yeah, why not do the signs?
Okay.
Driving around, I kept thinking the salesman was saying, no, those lakes are going to be jet ski lakes.
David, is that part of the plan, a recreational?
I got asked last year about, water show, just ski zone.
Oh.
Just a matter of information, the Edwards will have a monument site out on 160 indicating that Northglenn is not wastewater treatment.
I think that's good. Yeah. All right, anything else?
You wanted a size, didn't you? No.
Yeah, sure.
Big enough to see.
Yes. yes.
Big enough to see?
Small print.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I can defer to Public Works to determine what would
There
be
you go.
appropriate
Okay.
for size and scale based on the speed and typology that we're looking at. In-house, you mean? Yeah.
Whatever is big.
I think bigger, but I'd say do it in-house and make it cheap.
Here's what we can do is that typically when you do this type of signage, there's a speed design based on font and based on the content that we're going to provide, and we can figure out what that is. But if we can fit it on a 4x4 or two 4x4s, we'll figure that out.
Is that big enough though?
We'll make sure that you can read it when you drive by.
When it's up there, so
Sure.
it tracks them to look at the signage?
Digital sign?
Yes, okay.
We'll get the red flags
This-
that they attach.
Digital. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mayor,
Yes.
could we delay the next item to the last item? It'd be a great way to finish the meeting
Oh,
up.
yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely.
So we can snooze at the end of the meeting, is that what you're saying?
Jason's got plenty of time.
Jason, Jason, you just got me to the end of the line.
That's not gonna bother me.
Thank you, Jean.
Okay, so next, okay, we'll do the, David, the comprehensive school zone.
Yeah, you got pushed well.
Actually, that's a very nice. We saw that. Yeah. We should have put you first.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here tonight, as you know, we just got approval, I think it was a few weeks ago, for Northmore, some improvements in the right-of-way there, and we're here. I'm here this evening to ask if you have any preference. I'd like to get your opinion on which school you'd like us to focus on next and do our, basically our safety assessment on. I've attached to your memo, this is the second time you've seen this. The police data might be a bit old. I think that should be through 2009 through 2014. But on my memo, I highlighted the pedestrian incidences, and it looks like there were 2 in Stukey and 2 in Holstrom. So I'd just like to get some discussion going tonight on which school you might have a preference on to look at next.
David, I do have a question. It says Crossroads Middle School is at 119th and Huron. Is that right? Or is that just a typo?
Yeah, it might. That's probably a typo.
Because I was trying to figure out whether you really meant it to go to.
And one quick question, I was wondering, when is the striping and the signage going to happen at Northmore? I missed that in the last memo.
We got the contract approved, so as soon as we get their insurance, we'll give them a notice to proceed, and we'll, with the anticipation of starting right after the calendar year, school calendar.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay.
I think that, I mean, the common sense thing would just be, go down the list of whichever's your priority, whichever that has the most issues, let's call it. Just work your way down.
Yeah, I don't think any of the schools really have issues. I think that any of the drop-offs and pickups and the transportation network, the school property, I think can be improved to, I think, reduce the risk of accidents. The first page of the attachment are basically public works complaints that we get, and most of those are, stop signs wanted, things of that nature, no parking, and my approach, as I've advocated to council in the past, is really to look at not only the right of way but the school property holistically and try to find the best mix to address, basically the essentially how the schools have evolved to just this massive dropping off by parents, especially to the elementary schools. And it's just amazed me today that Northmore only has 2% of their students either walk or bike there.
Yeah.
Well, it's the evils of society now. Nobody wants to let their kids out of their sight. Judging by what's going on in the news now, that set of parents back east that, have their kids taken away from them simply because they let them walk home from school. That's why everybody's doing it, and the schools don't bus anybody anymore if it's a charter school. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I might make note to council that John and I did talk to the Adams 12 school district a few weeks ago, and I've provided this information to them, and to this date they haven't made any preference to me, and I assume not to John.
Now, I'll just, unless somebody else has another suggestion, I'll make a suggestion based on the number of traffic accidents and the fact that, and looking at the traffic accidents that involve a pedestrian. It looks like to me that Holstrom would come out as the next school we ought to take a look at. It had 7 accidents in that, and 2 of those involved pedestrians. So that's just a thought.
I would agree with that. think we should prioritize based upon pedestrian, accidents.
And then, for me, I'll just speak for Kim, since she's not here. And I know she's been asking, as long as I can remember, to get Hillcrest taken care of. And even though it's only got 4 disturbances here, it just seems like, I know she's adamant, she's been asking, as long as she's been on council, to do something. So I would suggest that also.
And I would just say, I echo what Carol said last meeting. I think it was really frustrating is that Adams 12 has been provided the information, is a major contributor to the problem, and chooses not to support or be involved in this. And that's very frustrating to me. And I think residents should consider having conversation with their board members there.
I do, I guess that, I'm not sure, Marcy, what you mean by involved. I mean, I think maybe they didn't follow through, but they weren't, we have to get them involved in this, because we don't just go out to their school sites.
But is there financial involvement on their side?
No. But, they realize that there's, I think that they're being as politically correct as they can, trying to match what they have for budgets, but, I guess the not so funny thing about this is that all of the school properties, when they were built in the 60s and the 70s, they have a great deal of real estate around the school system, and they, with just some slight modifications, they can change drop-offs and how buses and parents drop their children out without interrupting play areas or ball fields or any of those kind of things. Hillcrest is another great example of where there could be quite a lot of improvements, and coupled with the right-of-way improvements could, I think, improve the transportation and the network around there quite significantly. And they've been, I think, willing to work with us, certainly in data collection and coming up with plans that they can buy into. But at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. They haven't committed any funding to the Northmore project.
I think we commit the money because we feel the pressure and we feel it's the right thing to do. And I get it that they've had conversation with us, but this is part of their issue too. And I would like to see them come to the table with some funds.
Unfortunately, they didn't get their bond issue.
Well, unfortunately, we don't get funding for certain things too, and we still make it happen. So.
My understanding is our part's usually about 10% of what the overall project would be, including the school, right? The school would have 90% of what has to be done on their property, right? From what we've seen on Northmore, from what I recall.
Yeah, Northmore took an extraordinary amount of planning staff and my staff to do a lot of the initial data collection. Right. We mapped the sites. We hired a consultant to basically conceptual plan with the data that we provided them. And I would easily say that the soft costs were somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000, and the hard costs were $350,000, of which we still incurred the soft costs, but we only implemented, as you know, $34,000 worth of the soft costs.
And then the remaining 320 or whatever, 320,000 would be on the school district, right?
Which they're not going to do.
No,
because
that's
they're not
right.
getting pressure from anybody to do it like we do. So
also they don't have the funding because of the bonds. So I'm just wanted to mention that because they're doing the COPs on sewer lines and roofs and things like that. So and probably they should have made the COPs include some of the safety issues too.
I don't want to make it sound that the plan was wasted, because we nearly got the Safe Routes to School grants. Thornton School beat us out by, I think, a small margin. So the plans can be used to submit for grant applications. And certainly the Adams 12 School District did help us. We ended up submitting on behalf of us to get the grant for the municipality. But that's one other reason why to come up with a plan, at least with the potential to get grant funding at that point too.
I have a couple of questions, David. If we pick another school, is this going to be done in 2015? Another school in 2015?
The assessment will be done in 2015.
But not the, okay.
Not the hard costs. Again, we would go through the negotiation period with Adams 12 to try to submit for some grants. So if we could get anything done, I would hope we could get some hard cost construction or implementations done in 2016, but I would not count on that happening.
And are you looking at working with a consultant again to do another school? I mean, every
Yeah.
time you look at a school, it's gonna be all that planning, all the staff time, all the consulting.
That's exactly right.
Right.
I can't buy into that. It's just too much on our part. We're putting so much money into it. I'm also, I mean, if we do move forward, I would also move to do a school that's more not Holstrom. I think Holstrom represents the cream of the crop and where all the monies get spent in the school district. And I would like to see it go to the other schools in Northglenn that have issues, Stookie, Malley, Hillcrest. Those schools that don't ever seem to get anything done on their schools, I would like to see, not Holstrom. I do see what you're basing it on, but I also see issues at those other schools that would warrant them also getting worked on. And I just think if we are going to spend money on doing it, I would rather see it go to those schools that never get anything done.
Have you ever driven by Holstrom?
My kids used to go to Holstrom.
You used to.
Yeah.
Been there lately?
No.
It's a nightmare.
It was a nightmare when I
And
went
I
there.
told John, that one time, I sat in the same spot, just trying to get out of my street for 15 minutes, because they have nobody out there directing traffic. Well, they have one guy letting the kids cross the street, but he wouldn't, stop cars, let cars go. I was stuck there. And the fact that, the STEM school, northeast, it's in the same position, and all that traffic trying to go in both directions.
I get it, but do
Terrible.
you think that that's any worse than at these other schools? You don't think they have those same issues? I'm sure people can't get out of their neighborhoods. That's just the way it is right now with our schools being in the middle of neighborhoods. It's just a thing with me where I feel like those schools just get ignored, and I would like to see things happen at those schools if we're going to put money into it.
See, and I disagree. I think the whole thing is around safety. So wherever we've had kids hit or pedestrian hit, we ought to focus on that because it's about safety, not about who's getting the iPads in the schools or not. That's just the way I feel about it.
Well, so you had 2 at Holstrom that were pedestrians and 2 at Stookie, so now what's the next prioritization on those 2?
So maybe we'll let staff to decide, and you can talk
Yeah,
about
two
that.
were sticky.
But I agree totally. I don't want to penalize a school just because they have some gifted kiddos there. It is all about safety, and that's for me too.
Yeah. We looked at, it was kind of interesting that, because the schools that had the pedestrian collisions, we didn't have any complaints registered from those schools.
Right, correct.
And yet, a lot of the ones that had, other kinds of collisions and stuff like that, that's where we were getting the complaints, so. But once again, I just kind of looked at it from the standpoint of the safety and Holstrom over Stookie, simply because Holstrom had one more collision than Stookie. So,
And, for me too, because I'm a parent that goes and picks kiddos up from school, how do you educate the parents? I mean, you see the parents and they're running between the cars. They don't go to the crosswalks. I see other parents where they make U-turns when the kids are going across, so they don't have to go back down to the corner again and go around the school. So, it's not just the schools, the parents need, some education and if you have kids there and you don't want them to get hurt or you don't want to have a collision with your car, don't be making those U-turns, don't be making the foolish decisions that you're making. I mean, I see it when I go over there.
That's why I thought when we should have, like, when we were talked about in the budget about adding one more cop to the thing that would rotate between the schools, then you're pulling over those people. And as you're talking there, how do you educate the parents? I mean, my first comment was they all should have driver's licenses first.
That's true.
So
That's true.
And with PD there, then maybe you weed a few of them out.
Right.
When we went through the Northmore exercise, designing the outreach program or the intangible piece was the easiest to put together, but it's the hardest to get implemented, to design it so that you're passing the baton to the next grade school coming through the school system so that it's perpetual and it keeps on getting passed down.
Well, so what I think is since we spend so much money with staff time and consultants, and then we only ended up doing 30-some thousand in repairs or whatever we're saying, we're overkilling that a little bit. So we have to dumb that down a little bit somehow and not go overboard on what can be done when we're not going to be able to fund it in the end. Why would we spend that much money up front when in the end we're not going to be able to fund that much?
Well, I think it was always the flip side of being able to potentially get a grant for the funding.
Because you do attempt to get grants and or other resources,
We do.
each project. It doesn't always happen that way, but we make the attempt anyway.
I get all this. I just, like Marcy said, I don't like that the school district doesn't financially assist in this. So it's always going to be my gripe.
So are we gonna start with Stuckey next, and then maybe Holstrom after that, based upon what we have here on data? That's what I would propose, based upon coming to a compromise.
Well, if council was going to do anything at all, I was like John, I highlighted on my sheet here the pedestrian incidences, and I had 2 at Holstrom and 2 at Stuckey. So, I mean, my opinion, if council decided to move forward, would be to pick one of those 2 schools.
Yeah.
I would love to see Stuckey then.
It doesn't matter to me, either one is fine, so whatever you guys want to do.
I'd propose Stuckey then,
Stuckey?
would be next.
Holstrom?
The greatest danger.
Greatest danger.
Greatest
That's
danger.
the key.
Yeah, safety. Holstrom?
I guess there's one extra
Yeah, I see the
collision.
greatest danger at Holstrom.
There is one extra collision that's at Holstrom, right?
Yes.
There's one extra
Five.
collision.
What-
Five.
Would this solve the traffic problem of Joe sitting there for 15 minutes or not?
You know what, just give me a piece of heavy equipment from the city, I'll take care of the problem right now.
All right.
It's because Holstrom has the most impatient parents there probably going in and out of there too.
Oh, you know what,
So-
I agree with you.
There's just no responsibility on the people that should have the responsibility.
Right.
Get their kid ahead of somebody else.
I know.
So we've got,
Sound like me, Joe. Yes. All right, Holstrom, did I get a consensus for Holstrom?
No,
Yeah.
no. Stuckey.
Well, wait a minute.
I don't
I'm
have to be
looking, oh, I
consensus.
know, I was just looking for a consensus, is all.
No, it's not consensus.
I'm
So I
Holstrom.
said no.
What do
Well, I
you,
know,
Well, it does have one extra collision, so.
Leslie's Holstrom.
yeah, the consensus would be the majority.
Gene said I
Right.
think it was Holstrom.
Consensus is everybody.
It's gonna be in trouble.
I'm neither.
Mayor.
Wayne's neutral. Gene?
Holstrom,
Holstrom.
danger.
Marcy?
How do you figure there's more danger?
The staff said so.
I'm not sure that I'm stuck on Holstrom, but I kind of come back to,
It's
again, the
fabricated.
one that keeps getting the calls and the longest on the list has been Hillcrest. So how do you weight that? So it's the safety, it's the number of people who call, it's the what? So we promise longer for Hillcrest.
We did.
And we're gonna promise them again, we'll get to you eventually. So it's like, which way do you go?
Have we had any input from the school district that they would like to see?
No, they've not selected or expressed a
They're not even
preference
involved
on
in this
any.
particular process.
Well, they're not going to because
Right.
they're afraid that if they open their mouth, we're gonna say, well, then fix it. But we're out there
Give me the money.
proactively, well, you know, we're fixing it for them. Anyway, you got 3 for Holstrom, 1 neutral, 1 for Stuckey.
And I'm
One for
speaking for, I'm
Hillcrest.
speaking for Kim, even though she's not here, which would be Hillcrest, so.
That's your Hillcrest.
Two
too, right?
Hillcrest,
Have that
2
Hillcrest.
for Hillcrest.
And what were you, Joyce?
3 for Holstrom,
I'm all over the board, so,
1 for Stuckey. 1 neutral. How many, I'm counting more people than I've got here.
Oh, I'm gonna
Obviously,
wait for Wayne.
Holstrom is the majority at this point, so.
all right, even if I went with Hillcrest, which I'll do because, you know, Holstrom's better.
Holstrom.
Okay.
So do I hear consensus for Holstrom? Very
Is that,
well.
is that like the Holstrom area, does that include some STEM school around the corner too?
Come on,
now you're
that's
pushing
enough.
it.
I would
You
like
know
that.
what? They're on the same, technically,
Yeah.
they are on the same
They
property.
really
2
are.
birds with 1 stone kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah, see what you can do.
Can you pave the road while you're there too?
Thank you, council.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Nick, since we're still gonna wait, Marcy, you wanna do the branding discussion?
Sure.
All right.
So I asked for this to be on the agenda because I had some concerns about the direction that we've headed, where we've gotten to this point, and some concerns that I have about the participation or lack thereof. I'm concerned that we know that we have low attendance, low participation, so why it would be surprising that we had that this go around, I'm not sure. But my issue is that we didn't have a diverse group of people that were really here. And so what we had were our great residents who participate all the time, are most active in this city, giving their opinion. And I welcome that, but I have concern that if you look back at the reference of the executive's summary from the survey, and you look at some of the feedback and comments that we received and opinions about our city, we're going to have the same input back in here to the branding that we already know is the case. And so, you know, if you listen to some of the comments that came about, we're talking about our city still in the past and what it's been and not the direction that we're heading. And I'm a little disappointed and surprised that maybe the facilitation didn't go in a direction that encouraged people to give the viewpoint as to where the city is going. I think that was really important to rebranding, because otherwise, here we are rebranding the same thing that we've already had. And I'm not game for that. I'm not up for rebranding the city of what we've been. This whole point has been about branding the city to what we are moving towards. It's a new impression. We've said that we want residents and we want to attract people, and to do that with the same opinions that we've had and not bring in outside opinions, diverse groups. I think Stephen Stokes said it perfectly in the session I went to, and he said that we don't have a diverse group of participation in these panels. So my concern is that I think we're moving forward regurgitating the same thing we already have. I think we need to put a little bit more effort into getting other opinions, and I'm just really concerned at what we're going to get. So that's my input.
Well, I can only speak for the session I went to, and I think we had the same impressions that you had. Yeah, that the group really wasn't that enthralled with what was going on in that particular session. So, I don't know.
Can you speak a little bit about the first session? And
I went to the second session.
were we at the third one?
Yeah, we were in the first one.
We're in the first one.
Oh,
We're in
okay.
the first one.
You were in the first one. So it was the same thing?
Yeah,
It was the
yeah,
same
there were
exact
lots of
thing?
people there.
Oh, okay.
And very small turnout.
Yeah.
But they tested like two like thought processes? Okay.
And if you have to sit and think about the statements that long, I'm thinking we missed the boat. And I think at some point there were participants who were just pulling at strings as to what those statements meant. And that's concerning.
Yeah.
It
And I think
took that much effort for them to realize what it was saying. That missed the boat.
I mean, because we were actually kind of prodded to say certain things, or, you know, so yeah, I agree with you. One of the comments that I received later from somebody that was there said, any of these things that they heard during the session could apply to any city. And we don't want to be any city. We want this to be Northglenn, so. I agree with you.
You know, the comments that came out of it are the same comments that are reflected in the executive summary as to what the impression of our city is. And those same comments were made and by the participants, and I get that. But so where does that leave the team? Where are they going to take it? What direction are they going to take it? And that's part of why I brought this up. I just want to be sure that we're not just moving forward, got the opinion, and now we're going to move forward with those. Like, what is the next step? Because I feel like if we just take what we have and we're moving forward, I'm again disappointed. And this is really important. I can't stress that.
I don't think we can even take anything that we had from our session and move it forward. I mean, seriously, I don't.
So John, what is the next step? Do you know? Because they
Okay.
weren't very clear with that.
Yeah, well, Amanda and also is here, and also and Debbie, but also Jordan is here from Red Rag and Bull, and maybe they could address what they're going to do with the results of the branding panels, and also what the next steps would be, and what their reaction would be also to Marcy's comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So to address one of the questions, and then I'll turn some things over to Jordan on the creative side. The original proposal actually had planned for 4 sessions, and there was some concern from the team that we wouldn't get that diverse input. So we did narrow that to 2 in-person sessions, and then using those other 60 slots that would have been the other 2 sessions for an online version that would reach out hopefully to an audience that isn't as likely to come see us in person. So that was part of the way the team was hoping to address the lack of participation in in-person meetings. We were hoping to get a full 60 people there. I know there was outreach that was done through the connection, through the website, through personal invitations, and 100% of who attended was through either the personal invitations through council or those on boards and commissions or who had some other connection to the process thus far.
But the concern is that those are the same processes that we go through to try to get participation in any other survey, in any other thing, and we know from our history that they don't participate. And so let's get creative about going out somewhere else and getting this effort. And
Go to where the people
just-
are, you know, they're at our events, people are at our events, or they're at our board, like, take it to the senior meeting where there's 60 seniors there at something, or, I don't know, I mean, yeah, I agree, I think it needs to be a more
we need to be in
creative.
the community more on this instead of getting them to come to us. We know they're not going to come to us, and so we're getting the same people that are involved in our city, and they're giving us that impression, and we're trying to rebrand the image of the city. And so what does that mean? We need to get people that aren't as involved in the city giving their input.
Did anybody, look at the boards that are in Joanna's office?
Oh, that is
That's
a great
right.
idea.
All those,
Have you
all
looked at-
those Post-it notes that she's collected at the 6th Street Halloween and at, 4th of July, and she saved them all. I mean, her office is a Post-it note.
Do you have,
Yes.
yeah, I have all those in file.
You do have all that?
Yep. I think the issue was though that process came earlier in the overall branding process, and we were looking for some very specific feedback at this portion of the research and branding process. And I do think that Marcy, you're absolutely correct. Civic participation is lower in the growth areas of the city of Northglenn, and oftentimes when you administer these kinds of panels or these surveys, you do get higher participation from the usual suspects. The strategies that we've seen that work in the past are typically unsurprising. I mean, they're hugely incentivized. To incentivize civic participation is oftentimes the most successful. Even to get creative about civic participation, it kind of takes 2 things. It takes either money or it takes time. We kind of put these panels together in a shortened time frame. It took about 2 weeks to recruit, and I think we were incredibly successful over the 2 weeks that we did use to put it together. But to really get full participation of the kind of audience that we would want, it probably would just take a long time and a very heavy campaign rotation to get people involved. So that was that challenge. And I do want to address, and I don't know if it's the time yet, the other concerns about the positioning statements that we surveyed in the panel, because I know that there was some concern about what those positioning statements were. And I do apologize. I think in the first panel, it wasn't necessarily communicated to you guys what was the goal of that panel participation and the outcome. Those statements are meant not for public consumption at any point. They are just meant to be directions. So if you look at those 2 directions, you have one that's connections, and you have one that's beginnings, if I were to name them with one word each. And when you think about a brand, you think about the city of New York, you think about the city of Tokyo, you think about the city of, they all have feels to them, right? Tokyo has sophistication, or New York has style. And those are just one words. And so what we're trying to get out of those panels are those one word directions that we want to take the city of Northglenn. So we identify, let's say it's connections. If it's connections, what do we do with that? How do we articulate that through design and through copy and through creative? But we were not in a creative process during those panels, and I think that might have been errantly communicated to you guys, and I apologize for that. So I don't know if that addresses any specific concerns, or if you guys have any additional questions.
Well, yeah, because what do you do with the feedback that you did get now from everybody?
So we're right in the middle of the research process. We are at the point in the branding process called positioning. So we have done research. We went out and surveyed residents and non-residents we did a brand workshop where the whole process was explained to a group of stakeholders. I think it was like 15 stakeholders that got in a room, and all of us, Northglenn residents and business leaders and city staff, and we all brainstormed based on the resident feedback as well as the audit of municipal competitors, like Westminster. Where do we go with this? What do we do? What's true about the city of Northglenn? And all of these participants at the brand workshop gave us some ideas, right? Well, we think Northglenn is home, to us. We think these words really best describe Northglenn. We think these concepts are true. Here are some things that people have said about Northglenn that really resonate to me. And we put them all out, and we had a board, and we wrote them down on the whiteboard. And then we took that feedback back, and we took the online surveys, and we kind of put it all together, and we came out with two big directions that we heard time and time again. A, that Northglenn is the center, it connects people and places, right? It's I-25, and it's where families come, and it's where businesses come to be connected to people. Like, it's all about the music between the notes. It's the fiber, right? That's what Northglenn is. That was one direction. The other direction that we heard was this is where people go because they want to begin something great, that they buy their first house here, that they start their businesses here, right? They go to Northglenn because they believe in opportunity, right? And that's really where the city came from, and that's how the city is going to grow, and that's the kind of populations we see. So we took those two ideas, and we wrote up statements that describe both of those ideas, and we took them to the interactive panels. And at the panels, we were supposed to get feedback. Do you think these are true? Do these reflect what you think about the city of Northglenn? In what ways do they or do they not? The online survey is going to have that same line of questioning. And then we take the feedback that we receive from the interactive panels as well as the feedback that we receive from the online survey, and then we move to the final promise. This is what the city of Northglenn is all about. Let's say it's the beginnings, the opportunity, right? So that's what the city of Northglenn is all about. How do we build a logo that articulates that promise, right? How do we build communication, like an email template that articulates that promise? How do we get people to start to feel that way? And so, for example, if you go and you build a website from here on out, that website should reflect that. Or if we're going to name the business breakfast, if we're going to rename it, the name of the business breakfast should reflect that opportunity feeling, right? That beginnings are great here. So we're at that point where we're just trying to define which of those two directions that we've heard through all this research is true, and then we're going to go and start to create things. But neither of those statements are public facing. They're just to describe these directions. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think everybody understood that.
Okay.
Now,
That's good.
Did you take a look at the feedback?
Yes, I have.
And
So the feedback was, it generally, people did feel like the connections story, that Northglenn is the place where people go to be connected, was the truer of the two. And they did have hangups about words, but again, I don't necessarily feel like the words mattered as much as the concepts. And so if I were to take, we don't want to make any decisions yet because I still want to administer the online survey.
well, I want to get your feel, your gut for what you saw.
For what I saw from the feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like what I hear a lot. This is the challenge that you run into with a brand. The people who live here and bleed Northglenn, they know that things are true about the city, right? The city feels like home. It feels like home to them, and it reflects the values of home. And I think that that's great. But the unfortunate part is it's not unique, right? If you live in Thornton and you've been raised in Thornton, you feel the same way. So the challenge is to come up with a positioning that is both unique and true about the city and attractive to the kind of folks that Marcy's looking for, as well as the people who live there and who are oftentimes, they want a stake in how the city is going to be, positioned. So you're dealing with all these competing interests. And in light of all of that, I do feel like connections, in its broadest sense, is probably a decent way to go based on that feedback, right? If I were to balance all these competing issues. Now, is it the most compelling to a specific audience? I don't know. But is it the most compelling to the universe that we're going after? And is it the truest to the universe that we're going after? I would feel confident based on the research that we've done thus far in saying, from what I've seen, yes. But again, the online survey results have not been, administered. So that's my sense.
All right.
And you're looking for feedback from non-residents,
Correct.
and how are we getting that feedback from non-residents?
So in order to get non-resident feedback, we typically purchase a panel. We're doing that through our research partner. And basically what we do is we say, okay, I think we want like 150 responses from non-residents. And we will just administer the survey to this universe of respondents until we get 150. And then we will close it. So it is.
That's just like fishing.
That's
Much.
typically how surveys typically kind of work when you have a very wide universe. And so what we do is we identify, okay, we want residents non-residents, who fulfill these criteria, right? They got to live in Thornton, Westminster, Broomfield, Denver, competing municipalities. They opt in, so these are folks who are already open to the idea of being surveyed, and they fulfill these demographic needs, right? So we try to cast that specific net.
But I don't feel you get anything positive from that. I just feel when you're looking at that demographic, you're not going to get anything positive back about Northglenn. It's like you're talking to the wrong people. I don't know.
We tended to, we did the same thing for the original survey. We did non-residents and residents, and we did get both a mix of positive and negative. I felt like we got a relatively honest assessment of the city from my vantage point. It had a lot of what you'd expect. I come to Northglenn for the park. I know Northglenn as close to the highway, for example, or I know Northglenn for the STEM program. So there was a mix of positive and negative. Now, for this particular survey, though, we're not looking for qualitative feedback. We're going to show them these two statements. We're going to ask, very similar to the panel, do these reflect your opinion of Northglenn? If you'd like to, you can put in why or why not. Do these reflect, where you'd like to see the city go? And for non-residents, they really don't have a vested interest in that. But we want to see if we're at that point where we're testing two statements and not just getting research feedback.
But I feel we are just getting that same research feedback that we always get from people, because those are the same things that have been said every time we've sent out research surveys just within the city to people. Same things get said. And I think when I attended the panel, I was looking for positioning statements that would have been really unique and got people excited about the statements, and instead our discussion really denigrated to picking at words and coming back to the same old thing about Northglenn being home, and it just didn't show any forward thinking in getting something unique to get people talking and excited about it, to move it forward. And I think that's why we're just kind of at this stalemate in the process right now with our feelings, because attending the panel just felt so stale. It didn't seem to get us anywhere. And when you talk about using the connectivity or the opportunity, both of those were shot down in flames at the one I was at. So to me, none of those words connected to the people at all about Northglenn.
For me, on the second, with the connecting, I think the thing for me is nobody really shut down connecting all the way in our second group, but it was like when they described connecting, they talked about Northglenn being home and being connected to every city that they leave to go to.
Right, they said that at first.
Repeatedly they talked about it's home and it's easily connected so I can get to Boulder and everywhere else.
Well, that's what a bedroom community is.
And is that what you want your
Well, then why are
statement
we
to be?
spending all this money
Is
on
that what
branding?
you want
That's
your
what we're
branding
always
to
doing,
be? That's what you want to be? Is that no?
That's what the image is that we want to change.
And you have all the, you already have the feedback and the comment about people feeling that we're dated, and I mean, all of that, I just don't feel like that was considered in any of the statements, and trying to rebrand that. I mean, you have people in the survey that are making that statement. We're out in the community, and when you're talking to people, what do they say about Northglenn? Oh, it's old housing stock. And so where in this process is that going to change? Where are we going to see a change in our branding and our image? Because I don't want to be that for another 15, 20 years.
So where you may potentially be hung up in is moving toward the how, right? So there's the why, right? And the why is, let's say, for example, it's connectivity, right? People do really, I mean, that could be the truth. Whether we think it's sexy or not, it could be the truth of why people live and move to Northglenn. Where the appeal comes from is how that is communicated. Because again, it's a very broad platform, right? Just to be connected to things. It's very broad. And you can communicate that in a really attractive, appealing, and youthful and energetic way. Or you can communicate it in a way that feels stale. There's two ways, and that's the glory of choosing something that's broad. It has a lot of different ways of doing it. So could you still do a logo that has high attraction value with connections? For sure. Can you still write about the city in a way that's very attractive? For sure. But at the core of it, it still remains true. Because if I were to say something about Northglenn that isn't true, and people came and moved here, I mean, they would be disappointed. And that's not the brand you really want. You want a brand that reflects the truth in a really interesting and appealing way.
And the truth could be that we're affordable housing. I mean, we could make that argument for 10 other statements.
One thing that our committee noted that was lacking was education. And we've got some of the STEM schools and the studio school for arts, all these things, and yet there was not an element of education in there at all.
Right. So in a brand platform, and I think that's a really great point, in a brand platform you have two different levels of appeal. And one of these, the top level is this broad, connections or opportunity or whatever, greatness. And at the bottom of that, what supports that are the things like schools and parks and infrastructure and those kinds of things. And the reason being mostly is because in 10 years, your education could change. It could be unexceptional. It could.
Right.
And if that's the case, you don't want your brand to be completely leveraged on education. You want your brand to be inclusive of all these different concepts. And if Northglenn stands for connection, then that could mean a variety of different things, But the connection, the way you connect families and, keep people together and, this fiber, this network always remains the same, whether your education is great or not great.
I'm going to go back to this because I think sometimes the most primitive way of figuring things out is sometimes the easier way. Now I'm going to refer back to Joanna's thing, because when she gathers that information, the people have obviously come here for something. So something has attracted them.
Right.
4th of July, State Street Halloween, and Christmas, yeah, Noel, Northglenn. And so I think that's where you're going to get the best feedback from people who are residents and not residents. Or they're coming here for something, so we're going to give you that feedback as to why they chose to come to our park instead of Thornton for their fireworks or Westminster or whatever. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally agree. And I think those events
and
are.
I think that something like that could be put in the format of a page and can actually be done relatively cheaply. Just putting a booth out there on the 4th of July.
And what we could conceivably do if we all felt it was appropriate, we could have them vote right there. They could put a Post-it note on which concept they wanted.
Well, and that's pretty much what Joanna does.
Right.
She just has little beans in a cup or
So if I can interject
Hey, that's why primitive is sometimes good.
If I can interject just a little on kind of that same topic. In addition to part of the scope of work was to provide, for just this step, was to provide the 4 panels, which we broke into 2 panels and then the online component to have that additional outreach. There are also there's also an internal piece where staff is implementing or intended to implement the same questions through our user groups in a very similar manner. So we have boards that are ready to go up in, I believe we have 10 locations, where we're looking to reach residents, non-residents, participants, people who are participating at some of our outlying facilities as well, whether it be some of the schools or through rec center, senior center. And being able to look at that data might be those impressions based on the group that they're associated with. So by the one in the senior center, obviously, and it's a very simple, on that one, it's a quick yes, no, drop it in the box, provide any comments that you would like. So it's similar to the methods that have been used at July 4th in the past, or Noel Northglenn. But giving a wide range of people the opportunity to provide that input. Jordan had asked that these panels be done first, before any of that was laid out, so that the panels would have the opportunity to provide the in-depth feedback or more in-depth feedback without having seen those statements ahead of time. But there is, in the plan, over the next 2 weeks, and we can make modifications as we need to do that additional outreach, hoping to reach our active user population as well as those who are just coming by our facilities.
I would agree with you, though, that there's a certain magic, right, that exists in these group events that is true about Northglenn, right? The magic is really the most articulated when everybody's watching the Lego Movie in the park. It's at its best.
There's another one right there. Bring it again.
Right? And what we are trying to do is capture that unspoken magic as best we can from the people who are willing to talk about it. And I think the challenge is that the people who are often willing to talk about have their perspective of the magic, and we're trying to find the truth about the magic, right? And I think that some of that magic comes in saying it's square, like it's all about connections, and some of that magic comes in saying it with flair. Once we have the connections piece, let's add a layer of romance on top of it, and really get people jazzed about, if it's opportunity. I'm really going to come to Northglenn, not because of the affordable housing, but the affordable housing is this piece of, this is where I'm going to begin, right? This is where all great things begin. And it's because of affordable housing, and it's because of great schools, great kids, they all begin here. So it's not typical. It doesn't just feel like home, it feels like something more than that.
That was part of what was taken as an issue in one of the statements where everything started here, but it was alluded to the fact that you start and you leave. I mean, we don't want them to leave. We want them to make their homes here, raise their families here, start their businesses here. So that left kind of a bad taste in most people's mouth.
The word nurtured was used a lot too, not just begin here, but opportunities here, but then there's nurturing and the reason why people stay. So that was something that was said repeatedly in our session.
Right.
And the connection piece that people, that I heard really hated on the connection piece was, you just connect here to go someplace else. Like, we're not a place you come to stay or be, you know what I mean? You just go through here.
Right.
That was something that I heard expressed quite a bit, and that we want people to come here and stay here to use our restaurants, and use our different facilities and things we have to offer.
Right.
So that was just something so I was hoping that really you were going to say that you guys are rewriting some of these statements before you test them again with, the website or the panels.
Yeah, we are making adjustments before
Are
we
you good? I'm glad
go to the
you're
online
good.
survey.
When Joe mentioned about doing booths and stuff, that was my first thought too. And you only have that certain group of people that will actually walk up to your booth and actually talk to you. That most people walk by you. But then after I started thinking, what if you had two people just walk the crowd with a clipboard and hit different groups of people? In the morning, you got a different crowd. In the afternoon, in the evening, you have different crowds of people. You get a pretty diverse group of people if you hit it 3 times a day. And there, just walked up, not to hound people, but just say, hey, I'm just doing a little survey for Northglenn, trying to brand some stuff. Can you give me one word? Do you like this better or this better? And you're going to them, making it convenient. That's what I think.
Yes. Okay, any other questions, comments? Do you have any idea of what we want at this point?
we will discuss and
Yes.
work with the team and figure out where to go.
And I really do appreciate your feedback and the ability to discuss this, so thank you very much.
Well, and you're a little more energetic
The
than, I
administrator.
don't want to totally berate Sonia, but I
Right.
think if you were probably in the mix of things, some people might have gotten a little more excited about it, you know what I mean? And I, like I said, she didn't do anything wrong, it's just that there was a lot of awkward silences throughout the entire.
Right.
It was, you know, what about this, and then stalling.
Got it. Very good.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you for
Thank you
coming.
very
Thank
much.
you.
All right. Jason, you're on, Jason. Demonstration of the financial transparency website by OpenGov. Is that right?
Yes.
That would be movie. Where's the popcorn?
It's actually pretty neat.
Let me give you a little introduction. Jason got this crazy idea.
Jason?
They explored it, they did a little investing in it to see if it would work. Then they sprung it on the finance committee at our last meeting. And we praised Jason and the staff for doing this, and we said, but there's a tougher body you have to go sell.
That's right.
So here it is. I really think you'll agree it's something very good for the city. The staff really did an ace.
Well,
Now,
I'm
with
just
that-
excited that you're excited. I think I'll stop. and let-
With that,
No, so what we have to demo today is a financial transparency platform and website that really provides an interactive and dynamic way for our staff, our employees, our council members, the public to view our financial information. So I think we do a good job with transparency right now with our monthly financial statements and our audited financials and our budgets, and we put out a static PDF document that we say, hey, go take a look and flip through, which is fine for finance people or people that are really bored probably to flip through. But I think this reaches a lot of different people in a lot of different ways, and so I will jump in and kind of show you guys what this is all about. Here's the main view that you'll get when you enter the website. So this will be on a website that's open to the public. You can view it on mobile devices, etc. And so really what we have in this kind of first graph is a graphic illustration of our spending by department over the last 5 years, and then this column here with the budget, so that you can see, kind of the spending over time. So, and if you hover over things here on the toolbar on the right, it shows how we've changed our spending habits, what our total amounts are, and just kind of a cool, quick way to look at the financial picture, through the web, really. There's a lot to show, so I won't go through everything, but I'll just try to click on some of the highlights.
Did those little pop-ups that came, I'm sorry, I can't read that.
Okay.
Did they say why the spending looks like it's gone high on wastewater because of the things we need to be doing there, or does it explain any of that?
You have to drill into that.
So there's, we can add, so this is we're still developing it, but we can add notes because that's a good catch in Public Works. You kind of see the spending over time and you go, whoa, why is there 116% change to the 2015 budget versus what we spent in 2014? We can add some annotations to kind of explain, and that was one of the things that we're working through, is to explain that if people are on this page, they'll be able to click an annotation that I think sits under here and kind of explain that hey, we have this major project, and that explains kind of the large discrepancy in some of the figures. And so we've taken the data back 5 years. That's when we switched to the Springbrook software. And that provides for the most consistency as far as making sure that the numbers and chart of accounts and things match up. So you can drill down if you want to take a look at police spending. Well, here's what we spend on each division in police over the 5 years. If you come down to the bottom, it actually, some people are visual, some people like to see the numbers. Provides both opportunities to view the information.
So that doesn't pop up anymore?
We remove the transactions on this page, so at the moment it doesn't pop up. So you can see if you want to analyze the information, you can download that table at the bottom to Excel and manipulate it that way if you'd like. The other thing with all of the graphs, again, because people visualize differently, they have a toolbar here that changes everything into different visual representations. So if you're a bar graph person, you just simply click on the bar graph. Pie graphs, the lines, and so on and so forth. So it really opens it up to, I think, a lot more people to be able to view and get what they need out of it as far as information.
Can the user change the years that they're looking at?
You can change the years. So over here, where it says fiscal year, so we have 2010 through 2015, but say you don't care about 2015, and whoops.
No, but can you go back past 2010?
No.
No.
We
Okay.
we started at 2010 and moved forward. But you can,
Okay.
along the same lines, you can change what information you're looking at if you want to just look at a couple of years and not kind of see the big picture. Because we'll just keep building on top of this. So at some point we'll have 20 years worth, and that might get a little bit challenging.
So Jason, like if you clicked on departments on the side or something, would that tell you how many staff were in these areas as to why, why they're so much more expensive? Because you're paying payroll for 80 people or?
So we don't have the FTE count
You don't
loaded
put
in
that
here. We do, there is access here to a link that takes you to the PDF document of the budget, so you can research that if that was desired. But it doesn't offer that
At face value.
piece. So if you notice, I hit reset and it kind of takes you back to the main page. Another thing that I think is very helpful is in the saved area, we can make questions and provide quick links to different things. So I'll just click on one. What does this city spend its money on? So you'll see personnel, capital outlay are kind of the two biggest pieces of that. Here you can drill down and you can see what we spend on our wages, overtime, retirement contributions, and so forth. So it's everything that we put out there now publicly. It's just exponentially easier to actually look at and evaluate. So if you wanted to just look at overtime, which is kind of funny to say. But you can see historical rates of what we've been spending on overtime over the past several years. So we're still working on adding different reports that we think are important to people. So there's kind of that information that's provided year over year. There's also a report which is current year spending, and it's basically the same, except this allows you to go through a certain period. So we know we do monthly financial reports, and we kind of stand up and say, hey, here's what we've done through March of last year. Well, now we can go through and look at, let's see, we can sort it by funds. Oh, it's broken down by funds. Filter. It almost ends up working like an Excel worksheet where you can filter and sort the data. So we can eliminate all the funds and just choose general fund spending over the last 5 years and compare March to March. Once we get 2015 data in there, it'll compare the 2015 budget to the 2015 expenditures. So there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot of, I don't know, to me, there's a lot of pointing and clicking you can do, and you can't really mess anything up. And you always can go backwards. You can reset it to the main screen if you end up kind of getting lost.
Where's your access point to get in here? Through the website, where would that be? When
Through
you
our Northglenn
Yeah.
website. So we're in the process of building a landing page. I guess that's what they're called, a landing page. I'm learning new web things. And so I'm not sure exactly where we're going to put that on.
Okay.
Obviously, when we first launch this, it'll be on the main page to build some excitement around it.
It'll be a link on the page.
Yeah, and it'll end up being a link
The
that'll
landing
take.
page would be your main page.
Well, we'll have a landing page on our site that kind of explains why we're doing it, what it is, kind of a how-to on how to use it. Yeah, and then we'll provide a link. I think the web address is going to be northglennco.opengov.com. Once we get that working
Show
up
the
and live.
programs.
Okay, let me go back to the screen.
But if you go into parks, you'll see more of it.
So,
If you go to parks and have new programs, well, they're already there.
yeah, I'll do it. So, Parks and Recreation breaks it down into the divisions. Programs, we can identify aquatics, children's programs. I don't know, we'll just pick on aquatics, I guess. And kind of see their spending specifically in aquatics. We can also look at revenues. Need to reset that. And I think I actually have a saved file that works a little bit better. Kind of where does the city's money come from? In a breakdown. And all of these things can be broken down by the different funds. So if we want to just look at general fund, some of these things I have as just global, the city as a whole.
Just curiosity, would you click on how
Oh,
much
sure.
money is spent on the Parks and Rec?
Oh, sure.
We actually looked at that.
I was just curious if it would show those programs that you were saying.
And then from here is where you can kind of drill down and filter things. So if you wanted to look at a handful of programs, let's see, senior programs, sports programs, I think it's allocating it that way. There you go. So there's spending on aquatic, sports, and senior programs over the past several years. So you get access to everything that we're providing access to, just in an easier way. So the other thing that I'll show you that we're putting out there, I know that this is something that you guys see on a monthly basis, but it's probably kind of hard to look at, is the transactions through the checkbook. So transactions are also going to be posted, and we have our transactions through 2014, and you can see dates, check numbers, things like that. If you want to look, you can filter this way, sorting things, or you can look up a specific vendor, or if you just see a vendor that you're curious about, you can click on that. It'll provide you all the, basically every check that we've written to Asphalt Specialties over the past 5 years, and it provides a total over here on the left if you just need to do quick searches for different things.
Jason, can you only search on vendor, or what other things can you search on this page?
You can search on everything. You can search on dates, check number, vendor number, not that you would know a
Any of
vendor
these
number.
things that have drop downs?
Yep, any of this stuff you can search for. You can sort by fund and so on. And we've got our P card transactions included. Since we talk about our P card program and, you know, the success that we've had with that. So it's also including, you know, otherwise you wouldn't see you would see no spending on Verizon Wireless if it wasn't for the P card. So if you just do a search, if you're interested, pick up XL Energy and what we spend there. But you can, like I said, pick the dates if you want to just look at what we spent with XL and, you know, basically March of 2011 or something like that, or through the end of the year. It'll filter and it'll redo your subtotal over here on the side. So I think that about covers it. Here's the balance sheet where we can drill down and look at the general funds, look at our general fund assets, cash and equivalents. And then again, these things kind of break down a little bit more detail of what specific assets we have. The general fund's not very exciting. We'll look at the water and wastewater for assets. And it gives you a good idea of the capital assets and infrastructure that we have. And then this breaks down the infrastructure a little bit more clearly to see infrastructure, water rights, vehicles and machinery and equipment and things like that. So gives you a lot faster access that, you know, I think this will be a tool obviously for us all in this room and staff, but I think the media as well, when they have, if there's questions about, you know, the financial situation at the city, they'll have access. The other thing, I don't think I showed this, you can post things to media, you can email. So if you guys have a question, I can actually respond back with a picture and some data rather than, you know, kind of typing out, well, in 2010 it was this, in 2011 it was, we can kind of just drill down and send that as an email attachment for you guys. So I think.
So 2 quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
How current is this? Would this be all the time? I mean,
the plan is to update it monthly, so kind of the same time that we do the monthly financials. So
if you're in June, you'd be doing like April or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it might be a little bit. It'll probably be updated quicker than the timing of council meetings.
Okay.
So the goal is to do it.
Does it show a history of? No, I'm blanking. What am I chasing after for my percentage?
Oh, the fund balance.
Fund balance. It was there and it was like gone, you know.
So let's see if I can find that. So let's look.
I know.
Let's look at general fund.
I wake up thinking that one, you know.
So we'll look at the general fund and we'll just look at equities and we'll do it over time. And there's your fund balance over time. So.
Yeah.
What's the percentage?
Oh.
What's the percentage?
He wants the one that says that percentage. Well, it won't do that, but it does give the fund balance kind of over time.
But you could
of
have
which
it
you could calculate
with a 25% going through that, following it through. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
We
that's
could-
a good idea.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go.
That breaks it down a little bit more. Here's the unassigned piece. And then here's our reserve requirement and then our Tabor reserve. So you get
Perfect.
that. There you go. That looks a little bit better, right?
No, I like the other one better.
Okay. And that's the beauty of it. You can make it look however you like with a click of a button. So yeah, it provides, it will provide hopefully everything that people can ask for. One of the other pieces, let me get back to this main page. They don't have a way to set, who should we pick on? We'll pick on finance because I'm up here doing this. Administration for finance. We can also scale things per capita. So finance, administration, and operations cost the city on average $20 per person annually. So we can scale things that way. I think sometimes we have inquiries about per capita spending for certain things, or revenues for that matter. And you can make the adjustment. I don't have to do it. It's just, it'll be a tab at the bottom that you can kind of make those changes to and kind of see what's going on per capita. So, and then let me make sure that I don't miss
I've got
anything.
another question for you. Is there
Okay.
any place in this that kind of just states, you know, like general fund can be used for X, Y, and Z, and conservation trust can only be used for, you know? Is there any place where it explains that to residents that might be looking, that might wonder why, you know, the water rate's going up when we have extra funds, you know what I mean, and in
Right.
the general fund or something? Is there any explanation as to what these?
So there's
funds are
not
used?
necessarily explanations at that to that deep of level. We can add some narrative to to each of these. I think under here, so here's kind of a report that we have saved. We haven't done it yet, but we can add narrative that kind of explains what people are looking at to kind of help with that. But there's nothing in there that is going to outline every situation that we have to say this revenue is reserved, this revenue is restricted. I mean, people will have to do a little bit of digging, I think, from that standpoint. But we can add different
Maybe a
notes.
general question with the general answer of what each
Yeah.
fund is used for.
And that might be, and that's a really good idea. We could have an annotation that people could click on or hopefully be directed to, or on our landing page, we could try to identify some of those things too. So,
The problem with the description is it won't have everything, and all of a sudden, how come this is not on there? There'll be things left off that it should be on because you can't do that detail on it. And this is basically financial information as opposed to the legal authority for whatever it's used for. It won't explain, for example, on stormwater, that title implies stormwater. But when you come to another fund, conservation trust, what does that mean? You can't list everything in there that possibly could come out of it.
You can give a basic description of what does. I don't see any
Yeah,
harm
the
in
basic
that.
description you can, but the whole purpose of this is to make available to every resident who wants complete financial data with regards to where the money is going in full detail. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And you can sell it to people. Look what we have available for you.
I just think that a lot of people don't understand how the funds work and how you can't transfer money from one to the other and whatnot. I mean, that was something that I had to learn about coming on.
That's something we could add into the budget, you know, as one of the additional pages of when we talk about the funds, what each of them could be. That's a page that could be added there. But this has got 1 in 10. And it's got an outrageous price that we have to pay every year to keep it.
what?
What is the
We
price?
thought it was free. I thought this was a free demonstration. Well, it's a free
It
demonstration.
is a free
Okay,
demonstration.
sorry.
Right.
Okay.
Staff went wild and blew the budget on this one.
Blew the budget. No, it's it's $7,000 annually.
Oh, wow.
So
That's awesome.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's good.
to be able to provide.
The public gets full access.
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, they won't get what you could potentially get, or the staff would keep drilled down to employee, like stuff like that.
So the plan moving forward is I'll set all of you up as users tomorrow, and you'll get an email that said, and I'll also send kind of a how-to navigate sheet as well. And it'll just be, your username will be your email here at the city, and it'll just ask you for a password, and then you'll have access. The plan is to launch it, and I'll have it go public on May 1st. But you guys will have first chance in a couple weeks to kind of go through and see how things work and become familiar with the website. And I know.
Put it in the connection so people know about it?
Right.
How
Yep.
else are you
We're working on an article for the connection. the company OpenGov, will be the first city in Colorado, or the first anybody in Colorado to go live. We will be with this product in Colorado. So they're very, very excited. And we talked last week about their press is gonna, they're seeking out the Denver Post and wanted to know, they wanted to know what media would be here tonight to talk about this. So it's a big deal in financial transparency, and it's a pretty cool thing, I think, that we're.
I love that we're first to the table, so thank you.
So
Yeah,
you'll-
that's great.
So
If I
hopefully
don't
it puts
see it.
pressure on the other cities.
Yes, yes.
So.
It's great, it's
Anyway.
beautiful.
Any other questions for Jason?
This looks really good. I like
Awesome, yeah.
how it shows where the money's coming from, too.
Glad we saved you to the end.
Easy to use.
Right, yes. Thank you for that.
Which part?
For being at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
totally. Glad we saved it to
It's a
the
good way
end.
to finish
Okay.
the meeting with something for the public.
Right,
Yeah,
definitely.
Very positive.
All right,
So,
thank you,
all right.
Jason.
Thanks.
We're adjourned.
City of Northglenn Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.